Doom Eternal is one of the greatest games I've ever played. I'll make that clear from the beginning. It had a rocky period for a couple months with several controversies, but in the current state I feel confident in putting together this review. Disclaimer, I am reviewing the PC version of the game. I cannot comment on how the game plays on console. I am not a speedrunner, I don't follow all the latest speed strats and tricks, I just play a lot of Doom. I will not be commenting on any controversies regarding pre-orders, the soundtrack's anti-cheat. Not only do I have nothing to add to those topics, they don't affect my view of the game. This review covers the single player only. I don't play multiplayer in any game. I haven't played it in 15 years. I didn't touch it in 2016, and I didn't touch it here. Maybe I will someday, but I consider it something totally separate. If you want to see some good battle mode content, check out P&D Catch-Up on YouTube. I will be covering things I love about the game, some things I definitely don't, and the in-between. Also, this review is my personal feelings about the game. There will be plenty of things not mentioned here. I can't cover everything. I'm just going to talk about what I want to talk about. I hope it's entertaining. If it's not satisfying to you, I sincerely hope you can find that content on another Doom channel, of which there are several and they are excellent. So let's start with the core of the game, the gameplay. Doom's combat has never been better. There's never been better combat in any other game either, not even close. Well, maybe God of War Ascension. Not a great game, but great combat. The combat is fierce, chaotic, and creative. You gotta be on your feet all the time. The impact of the weapons is strong and the controls are tight and responsive. You have a wonderful sense of mobility thanks to the double dash, and especially the meat hook, which will be the name of my firstborn child. Your new mobility options allow the designers to amp up the speed and aggressiveness of the demons too. Hell Knights in 2016 had a simple jumping smash. Hell Knights in Eternal jump like their characters in NBA Jam. Dread Knights pounce around the room like kangaroos. Teleporting prowlers, slithering whiplashes, the action and movement on screen are so much more dynamic this time around. The Kako Demon was not much of a threat in 2016, in my experience. A big, slow target with a single projectile. Now they have a multi-shot attack which is devastating, and they appear much more often. And if they get close, they have a charge attack that is so alarming that I died to the first lone Kako Demon in level 1 because I wasn't respecting him. They counter his new strength with a weak point. A quick sticky bomb or frag grenade into his mouth grants an easy glory kill, or can at least give you a moment to not have to worry about him, so you can focus on another more pressing issue. It may seem like too easy of a way to kill them, but their frequent integration into large chaotic fights combined with their much increased aggressiveness makes you so grateful that you can take them out or stun them like this. Mancubi are far more dangerous and accurate, and their instant ground smash makes you play carefully around them. You cannot get anywhere near this guy or he's gonna devastate you. You'll want to damage him from afar first, and you eventually learn how to gauge how much damage you've done so you can go in for the kill. You learn that after a grenade and a ballista to one of his cannons and a rocket to his face, you can meat hook in for a super shotgun blast to eliminate him. It's such a sweet dance that balances distance play, close range, equipment utility, weak points, and I just love it. The enemy weak points are very satisfying to target because of how annoying the enemy weapons are, and I say annoying in a good way. It's good when enemies can piss you off because it makes you want to tear them apart, especially in a game where tearing someone apart is this glorious. The Arachnotron has a weak point on his turret, and at first you feel it's just a suggestion to target the weak point. And then you end up here and he's just overwhelming you with laser spam and you think, oh my god, this bastard and his laser, it's gotta go. And then you take it out with a ping. And you breathe a sigh of relief. These enemies are oppressive and the game will stress you out. If that's your thing, and it's definitely mine, this is the game for you. They're much more intelligent than they were in 2016, though they are more prone to glitching out. Lost souls are pretty glitchy, and sometimes an enemy will get frozen in his idle animation, but those are small issues that hopefully get patched out. The weapon variety is perfectly tuned to the game, as is the ammo capacity, to encourage smart play. Enemy prioritization, resource awareness, weak point targeting, armor harvesting, high damage combo strings, all of it works together seamlessly. There's a lot of design decisions in the combat, particularly in the ammo capacity, that encourage creative player solutions. Ammo supplies have been cut in half in many cases, causing you to rely heavily on the chainsaw when you're learning to play. But as you get better, you get smarter with your weapons. You target more weak points, you learn multi-weapon frag grenade combos, and you find yourself running low on ammo less frequently. It's the perfect reward for smart gameplay. You want to rip and tear like a madman? Show us you can handle yourself and you'll rip and tear like never before. Once you master the systems, the ass-kicking you'll give out will be unmatched by any other gaming experience. You get ammo back from the chainsaw, which recharges over time for a one-hit kill on a small enemy, or a large one if you're playing like a pro and you can save up 3 charges without exhausting your ammo. At first you'll think you should burn all your ammo and then go looking for an enemy to chainsaw, and if you're incapable of thinking past the most basic first level of thought, you'll feel like you're always running out of ammo, and then you'll make a video on YouTube complaining it's bad design. But if you engage with the game, you see how it's pushing you towards problem solving. Maybe if I chainsaw someone in a moment of downtime after I kill a couple big guys, I can resupply my ammo mid-fight, and also use those couple of seconds to check my resources and make some good decisions. If that's the way you think, you're gonna love it. If you don't think like that, you won't. Simple as that. The chainsaw distance is also wonderfully forgiving. It launches you forward a considerable distance, even vertically, so it's a great tool for escaping a bad situation. But chainsaw isn't the only equipment we have. Hand grenades can explode large groups of small enemies but are better used against large enemies to falter them. A Hell Knight will stumble after a grenade explosion and you can focus him down with some micro-missiles. A well-timed grenade can let you get close to a Mancubus for a blood punch and a super shotgun. Ice grenades freeze problematic enemies in their tracks, and with some upgrades can deal increased damage and give health back. And the grenades are fired from a separate equipment launcher this time, meaning you never have to stop shooting if you want to throw a grenade. It's brilliant. The equipment launcher also shoots the flame belch to incinerate enemies so they drop armor. It's one of my favorite additions to the game because it keeps the player totally active in the process of keeping themselves alive. In the middle of a big fight, you start identifying clusters of enemies as armor opportunities for a quick flame belch and a rocket, and now you're back on top. There's a lot of upgrades in the game too. As you find suit tokens, you can spend them on upgrading the functions of the ice grenade, the regular grenade, environmental resistance, exploration hints, and most importantly, your mobility, allowing for faster dash recharge, faster weapon swapping, and so on. Weapon swapping becomes crucial to mastering the game on higher difficulties. Quickly taking down the Marauder and large enemies that fall to combos, and getting a quick snipe on a distant enemy and then switching to a meat hook to fly away. The weapons have never felt better. The plasma rifle especially has been improved and now feels better to spray liberally. All enemies now explode after they're killed with it. Nice touch. The chain gun doesn't have to spin up anymore, making it much more useful. The sticky grenades on the shotgun are amazing. The rocket launcher is vital to your gameplay. Lots of variety and mods to be upgraded and experimented with. There are mods and weapon strategies that can make quick work of some enemies. Quickly switching between rocket and ballista can melt some enemies. The mobile turret of the minigun annihilates the Hell Knight and the Dread Knight. If you get good at certain tactics and weapon combos, you can trivialize some encounters after your first playthrough. But here's the wonderful thing, that's all up to you. If you get bored by lock-on rockets killing heavy enemies, play with the remote detonation mod instead and try a different playstyle. If you don't like cheesing the Marauder, don't cheese him. The game is dynamic enough to give you several fun options to choose from. I really like the way the melee attack has been changed too. Your melee does next to nothing, so it's just not an option. You gotta use your guns, and that's very Doom. And it discourages players from mashing punch in a panic situation, which is something I saw a lot of people do in Doom 2016 if they were new to the game. I like this change a lot. If you want a strong melee attack, you have to charge it up with glory kills to get the blood punch, which is a devastating punch with a large blast radius. It breaks Cyber Mancubus armor, it breaks enemy weak points, very fun to use. The problem comes from the hit detection. Something about it doesn't work right. I've had a lot of instances where I went in for a clean blood punch on an enemy and I got a regular melee strike instead. I don't understand why this is. Maybe it's due to an enemy being in the middle of another animation because the punch makes contact in the later frames. Whatever it is, it needs adjusting because it can cause some moments of frustration. The worlds of Doom Eternal are varied and inspired. It's so much more of an adventure this time around. 2016 felt like an isolated event. Eternal feels like the fate of the universe is at stake. Some may like the former more, that's up to your personal taste. I like this more definitely. Traveling to the Mars core, the Temple of Necroval, the Maker World of Urdak, the Super Gore Nest, the locations are so memorable and imaginative. Not that I ever complained about the levels in 2016, I thought they were awesome. I didn't know I wanted so much more, but now that I have it, I'm very grateful. The levels may be too big though. Some of these places feel like they're the size of 2 levels. I think the game would have benefited from splitting them up more. Sometimes when I'm in the mood to just casually play some Doom Eternal, I sit at the level select screen just staring, remembering how big these places are, and I get exhausted and intimidated just thinking about it. I think it flows fine enough in the campaign, but still, I would cut it up into maybe 18 levels instead of 13. Eternal still has claustrophobic and corridor-style sections, but the overall levels feel more open and spacious compared to 2016, which complements the new mobility options. And this is greatly aided by one of the game's most controversial additions, the platforming. I like the platforming. I don't love it. When there's a platforming section, I'm either indifferent or it's amusing. Like this here. Jump, meat hook swing, catch the wall, launch yourself off, bounce off a jump pad. It can be pretty cool sometimes. It definitely doesn't take away anything from the game. Some people are actively angry about it, and the reason completely escapes me. I find the ranting and raving about a 5-second section of spinning fire poles to be ridiculous, forced, and childish. Is the toxic water section amazing? No. Is it horrible? No. I fly through it in a matter of seconds. Maybe it's because I'm already used to the exact same swimming sections in God of War. The ability to climb walls and catapult into the air directly helps the artistic design of the levels. The developers had a lot more freedom to create unique spaces and locations, knowing there are more ways to traverse the world. Some of these incredible designs just wouldn't be possible without the platforming. It helps a lot that the platforming is so tight and responsive. It's fairly forgiving, with extended contact areas to jump from, 2 ways of grabbing walls with either punch or dash, and a very quick dash recharge time. They could have really screwed up here, and I'm glad they didn't. I have never once struggled with a platforming section due to the controls. I think it all fits into Doom Eternal's philosophy of keeping the game an active experience. Traversing the world isn't just a matter of walking and taking elevators. You gotta space your jumps, dash, coordinate crossing to climbable walls. And this platforming allows the level designs to be more ambitious. You couldn't have this awesome level concept of navigating exploded debris of a planet without platforming. So even when I'm not thrilled by the platforming experience, I respect its purpose. And falling doesn't kill you, it just resets you. That's smart. That fact also encourages more exploration, regardless of what Yahtzee says.
Tell you what I never did in 2016. Dash twice into what looked like a ledge on the other side of a pit, then bounce off an invisible wall and fall into the pit while the game called me a spanner for looking for secrets there. I don't play games to be punished, my lad. I play games to be challenged. And when the game is actively saying, look for all the secrets, and I see a thing that blatantly looks like a ledge I can stand on, I don't want to be punished for exploring my curiosity.
If you jumped and fell in the last game, you died. In this game, it resets you. How does that discourage you from trying to find secret areas? The purple goo is not good. There's maybe 45 total seconds of it in a 20-hour game, so figuring it into a review score seems insane to me. It was tedious, I'll give you that. I actually like the purple goo section in Art Complex. This part in the sewer where you can meat hook off a zombie and dash to the box and skip over it, it feels really cool to be rewarded for mastering the advanced movement mechanics. The meat hook is a revelation, skipping entire fights, repositioning yourself on the fly, flinging yourself off a cacodemon. What a wonderful addition. I'd like to take you through the first few levels of the game and make some observations about how they guide the player through the process of learning the game. If you look at the beginning of Doom 2016, it starts the same way. You wake up and you're put into the action, 3 zombies you gotta kill. But after that, it can be a bit confusing what to do. I'm not saying I was confused, but I've shown the game to several people who are unfamiliar with Doom, and even unfamiliar with first-person shooters in general, and they walked around this area for minutes on end, trying to click on all these consoles with bright lights, and not even noticing that the suit of armor was something they could interact with. I had to tell them. Then it takes them to the glory kill tutorial and puts them at a door that can only be opened by grabbing the shotgun. Again, I've seen plenty of inexperienced gamers overlook it. They don't know what to look for, and they don't think about being able to pull a gun from a dead soldier's hands, because you can't do that in other games, so they get lost again. Then you get to the first combat area where you learn to move around and battle with imps. Doom Eternal does all this much better. We get a much more exciting opening cutscene that really brings the hype, a cutscene you can skip by the way if you want to go right into the action. Perfect. Again, you're presented with 3 zombies that you take out with your shotgun. and there's a very visible ammo pickup in the corner. The visual design of this place is excellent because the dark brown environment gives a great contrast to the items like ammo pickups, explosive barrels, weapons, and lets the player really take note of items that may interest them. Really smart. A single glory killable enemy is then in front of you and cannot be killed with bullets, forcing you to perform the glory kill. Good for showing the player how the mechanic works. If you look around, there's no flashing console or screens to distract you like in the first game. The level is simple in its aesthetic and draws the player forward. There will be time for exploration, but this isn't that time. You're given the chainsaw, and if you have tutorials enabled, you get a quick tutorial of how to use it. The chainsaw is vital to the game's combat design, so it's smart to let the player try it out a few times. Also because it's a single button press instead of something you had to pull out separately in 2016. Weapon pickups are now an eye-catching glowing green, so you won't miss any. If the weapons weren't as obvious, I would still have picked it up, but considering how easy it was for new players to overlook the chainsaw in 2016, I'm glad they made this change. It affects a veteran's experience by 0% and improves a new player's experience greatly. Right after that, you're introduced to interactable objects with a punchable block, and if you have an eye for exploration, there's a secret area with a hidden collectible. Then you get to pick a weapon mod for your shotgun, and they feature clearly presented videos that show you exactly what it does using real combat. A vast improvement over 2016's minimal animations. Not only do they better show you what the mod does, but seeing it play out in actual gameplay with all the blood and guts makes you think, yeah, I want that one. Health and armor can be picked up here too, and then it's game time. We open up into a hallway that lets you quickly practice this new shotgun mod, and then we burst into the opening combat room. This room is improved over 2016 by more strategic barrel placement and more open space to encourage jumping to other areas, as well as exploring over and under pathways to find ammo pickups and navigate through combat. A quick cutscene follows, establishing that you're on the hunt for these hell priests, and then you're dumped right into the world of the game, Hell on Earth. And it's just staggering how much detail there is in the first scene of the game. You just want to look around for a few minutes, and you can. The next room presents the monkey bars, and then the next room throws the arachnotron at you and introduces the player to the concept of enemy weak points. Again, I strongly approve of the inclusion of optional tutorials. A lot of people who play games are people who work 50 hours a week and come home to play a game for a couple hours, and they aren't veterans. Casual gamers are important, and I'm glad that id Software put tutorials in to explain the mechanics. The mechanics are crucial to your enjoyment of the game, and if you don't want tutorials, turn them off. There's no better way to handle it than the way they did it. We should be wanting people to learn and appreciate the mechanics of Doom. The rest of the level presents wall climbing, dealing with heavy enemies in tight spaces, the heavy cannon and its weapon mods, the shoulder-mounted grenade launcher, long-distance jumping, and cacodemons. It's incredible just how much they introduce in the first level, and how well they do it. The shotgun, 2 shotgun mods, the heavy cannon and another mod, glory kills, 3 fodder enemy types, 2 heavy enemy types with weak point targeting, the chainsaw, explosive barrels, wall climbing, double jumping, bar swinging, health and armor pickups, ammo pickups, exploring for secrets, the extra lives system, the equipment launcher, corridor combat, arena combat, open space combat, and that's just the first level. I've never seen so many mechanics delivered in the first level of a game, and it all flows so naturally. And there's more to come. The game is just getting started. Next we go to the hub world, the Fortress of Doom. And this is one of the main things I don't really like in the game. But I'll be clear, it's something I don't like now. I liked it in my first playthrough. It's cool having this big place to explore, looking at the collectibles and souvenirs in the Slayer's room, checking out his awesome PC gaming rig. You find batteries to unlock upgrades behind these doors, and you go to the next level when you're ready. I like this a lot, and I think it makes for a great addition to the overall experience of Doom Eternal as a game. The levels are massive and exhausting, and I honestly appreciated just being able to chill out for a minute. The reason I don't like it anymore is because once you've seen it, and I don't want to go back there anymore. I don't want to sit through these long animations every time I want an upgrade, and I don't want to have to run all over the ship just to get one. I wish I could just unlock this stuff through the levels, or at least skip the battery animations. id Software, please let us skip the battery animations, and the short cutscenes while you're at it. A short cutscene got me killed by a gargoyle in one of my Ultra Nightmare runs. Let us skip this stuff, please.
Oh! No!
Anyway, what I really hate is the Ripatorium. It's a cute idea to have a room downstairs where the Slayer keeps demons enslaved for his own shooting practice. That's great. Again, it's awesome for the experience of the game. But for anyone who likes replaying the game multiple times, especially those of us who play on Ultra Nightmare where we have to replay the first few levels over and over, it is really annoying to have to go all the way down here and fight through this lame room of fodder enemies before I can move on to level 3. I would totally remove this from the game if I could, or at least make Ultra Nightmare bypass it automatically. Your first trip to the hub is short, and you pick up the Flame Belch. There's also your first Sentinel Crystal, which is like the Argent Energy Orbs of 2016. In that game, you were given a choice of upgrading health, armor, or ammo capacity. Eternal puts a really cool twist on this by introducing unlockable gameplay modifications. If you want to upgrade your health, you choose one of these health icons. Let's pick this one. And next time, if I want to upgrade armor, I can choose the one on the same module, and that unlocks the center ability. And now my Flame Belch recharges faster. I really like this system because it creates an interesting choice for the player. In 2016, if you valued health more than armor or ammo, you would just upgrade health all the way first. There was nothing to incentivize you to upgrade something else. Now, you can still upgrade all the health points first if you want, but you'll be missing out on those unlockable modifications. Okay, moving on. Exaltia introduces the Blood Punch, the Flame Belch, the Double Dash, and the Rune system. Equipping a rune of your choice allows you to modify the game, giving you more air mobility, access to slow motion aiming, faster glory kills, and now you're fighting the deceptively simple gargoyles, which are much deadlier than they appear. And the classic 2016 big boy, the Hell Knight, returns, who pounds you into the ground if you're not ready. Getting the Blood Punch really helps in stopping a Hell Knight in its tracks, and serves as a decent panic button. But acquiring the Double Dash ability totally changes the game, and this becomes obvious with the Hell Knight. He's here to show you exactly how important it is to learn the dash mechanic, both in combat and in traversing the world through the platforming. They put you into a small arena with hazards on the ground that really encourages you to be mobile and in the air. And there's 2 Hell Knights that spawn here, and it really helps you get used to the dash. Exaltia goes on to introduce environmental hazards like burning lava, falling platforms, and spinning fire poles. We also find secret combat encounters and the Slayer Gates for a big optional challenge arena for extra weapon upgrade points and keys to unlock the Unmaker super weapon. Level 3, the Cultist base, is where Doom Eternal really starts to come alive. The introduction of the Mancubus makes the game so much more interesting. Now we have a long-range, high-health tank harassing you. And we also meet the Whiplash, one of the finest additions to the enemy roster. A real cheap demon that slithers around quickly with a hard-hitting whip attack and a much worse mid-range attack that can lock you down and ruin your day. The fights are starting to get much more complex, so they introduce the rocket launcher and the super shotgun with the meat hook. The arenas really start opening up, encouraging you to use your mobility in your new meat hook. And by the time you finish this level, you start to feel like you're really getting the hang of it. Doom Hunter Base really starts to test your platforming skills, and there you meet the Pinky, which is only weak from behind, but can be one-hit killed with a Blood Punch, the Prowler that can teleport to wherever he wants, even behind you, and the Carcass, which is a beautifully brutal enemy with 2 different long-range attacks, an insane spinning series of melee attacks, and he creates an energy shield to block your shots, and protect his fellow demons from getting glory killed. It's so cool. Enemies like the Carcass, the Marauder, the Archvile, the Prowler have behaviors beyond just shooting and punching. And the way they're intelligently mixed into fights really keeps encounters feeling fresh. I wish there were more special tactic demons like this. The Carcass may be my favorite enemy in the game now. Look how he protects his boy from getting glory killed. And watch here as that bastard actually blocks me in by putting his shield in my escape route. I love him. The level ends with your first boss fight against the Doom Hunter, and it's pretty fun, with a choice between focusing down his shield with your plasma rifle or targeting his base with your other weapons. It really tests your mobility too. And then when you get to the Super Gore Nest, it all just clicks. You're given the ballista, a quick-firing laser cannon, and when you walk into that first arena, you can really feel it. You can feel all the ingredients start to mix together perfectly, and they give you this huge playground to stretch your legs in. This is the point in the game where, if you have a handle on the mechanics, you can start bobbing around in your chair a bit to the music, feeling the flow of combat and movement. This is when you start to feel like a badass demon slayer. And that feeling continues to grow through the art complex and into the rest of the game. By the time you reach the final level, you're ready to handle the most absolutely insane fights the game throws at you. Every level has an awesome variety of arena fights. There really is an art to designing interesting arenas to play in. This room feels nothing like this room, which feels nothing like this room, which feels nothing like this room. Each encounter feels exciting as you learn where you can go and where important items are. Sorry, what was that, Yahtzee?
It also removes a lot of the role that level design plays. You might as well, and Doom Eternal indeed does. Just sort of plonks enemies into deathmatch arenas, and they don't have to worry about the placement of anything because the player can just grab what they need from the enemy.
There are items littered all over the arenas. You'd have to be blind not to notice them. Finding a super armor or a health pack can mean life or death, and with your limited ammo capacity, locating ammo pickups can actually feel thrilling. I also want to add that Yahtzee's comment that they, quote, just sort of plonk enemies into deathmatch arenas and they don't have to worry about the placement of anything is absolutely ridiculous. I just showed you that these spaces, arenas or not, have strategically placed ammo and health pickups. But the enemies are not just thrown in. Anyone with half a brain can see that specific enemies are chosen in each fight because of the chemistry that forms between them. The enemies that spawn in the beginning of a fight are there to work with the design of the room to create pressure, and after certain enemies die, other enemies are spawned in to change the flow of the fight. You can't just switch them out and put in other demons without having to rethink the entire balance of the fight. This stuff isn't just randomly thrown together. You can also hear the dismissive tone in his voice when he says deathmatch arenas. Hey, what's wrong with deathmatch arenas? If they're well designed and filled with great enemies in combat, what's the problem? Also, this game is way more than arenas. Doom 2016 was mostly focused on arenas, but Doom Eternal has way more going on. Eternal does a better job than 2016 at breaking up the arena fights with smaller combat encounters. I'd like to show off Art Complex as a good example. The level is packed with smaller rooms with unique mixes of small and heavy enemies. You start at a staircase where you have a Prowler, a Mancubus, Whiplash, and a Hell Knight, quickly followed by a Pinky, a Prowler, and a Revenant that burst through the wall. After pushing through another Hell Knight and Mancubus, which are quite oppressive in narrow spaces, you head down a level into an oval room that throws 2 Whiplashes at you. It's a really dangerous room. Heading downstairs leads to a long hallway stuffed with enemies and a Mancubus at the end, with a carcass protecting him, leading outside to a large open arena that finally lets you breathe a bit. Art Complex has encounters inside a crashed airplane, a giant brawl in a huge dining room and a kitchen, and also leads you up winding staircases with enemies breaking in through the walls. There's a surprisingly fun purple goo sewer section, and an awesome fight in a parking garage. I mean, this is all just one level. There's so much variety to the flow of combat in this game. As you're playing, there are periodic cutscenes throughout, and lots of lore pages scattered across the game. I was never a big Doom story guy. There are actually very few games where I care about the story. The Silent Hill trilogy, Metal Gear Solid 1, the God of War trilogy, Doom was never one of them. I ignored Doom 2016's story for 3 solid years. Yeah, Portal, Hell Energy, Demon Cult, Legendary Doomslayer, whatever. And then I started finally wondering, what's going on here? Who are the Night Sentinels? Is the Doomslayer the original Doom guy? And once I opened that box, I couldn't close it. I stayed up night after night reading every codex entry, watching channels like Acid Glow and others that talked about Doom history and theories. I was hooked and so excited to see how Doom Eternal's story played out. And I think they did a pretty good job of it. They did exactly what they did in 2016. They delivered a story that seems shallow on its surface when you first play it, because Doom is about the action, And then as you dive into the details, learn the story of the makers and the people of Argenta and the story of the rise of the Doomslayer, it's mind-blowing. I love it. I love the bit about how Doomguy mentioning the demons is what led the makers to discover them, meaning that Doomguy set all these events in motion. The story and lore of these games are so good, and I'm hungry for more. My only disappointment is that there aren't more cutscenes. I mean, they're skippable, so give me more. I want to see the Betrayer more, especially. I think we deserved a big cinematic ending. It would have been cool to see some of the lore presented in some kind of animated scene, something like the art style of the original God of War cinematics. The game actually has a lot in common with God of War, the originals I mean. We've got the large platforming sections, the grapple hooking, equipment abilities are like magic, 360-degree combat scenarios, different tiers of enemies, some with their own weaknesses and strategies, the huge epic locations. I'm a huge God of War fan, so this pleases me very much. God of War also has epic music, and so does Doom. The new Doom games are inseparable from their music and sound design. The 2016 soundtrack was revolutionary and will be remembered as one of the greatest pieces of industrial and metal ever created. It wasn't just the tunes though. There's a lot of environmental tracks that set the mood of the game when you're not in heavy combat. Doom Eternal pretty much does that again. We get more awesome combat tracks and more awesome environmental tracks. And they're different enough in their production to feel like they belong more to Eternal than they do to 2016. I don't know which one I like better. But I want to talk more about the sound design of the game, because the music is something we're all familiar with already. I'll start with the Revenant scream. That's just the craziest thing I've ever heard. I love it. He is so insane. The crazy screaming perfectly complements his erratic movement. The sounds in the game are really easy to recognize. When you hear this, you know there's a Prowler teleporting. When you hear this, you know a Cyber Demon is targeting you. When you hear this, you know you're trapped in the goo. The weapon sounds are also really crisp and clean too, but they're not explosive. Take the Super Shotgun. On its own, it sounds good, but it doesn't explode like a true double-barreled shotgun. Listen to the one in Dusk. Now listen to Doom Eternal again. There's a big difference in intensity, but the shotgun sound doesn't exist in a vacuum. Maybe on its own, it doesn't sound huge. But in a game like Dusk, there aren't 100 other things making noise at the same time. If you took the loud booming sound of the Dusk shotgun and put it in Eternal with the insane music and screaming revenants and double dashing and grinding metal meat hooks and grenades, it could really become percussively abrasive. So the sound design helps the gun fit smoothly into the family of sounds that are constantly playing in your ear, while still being impactful and unique enough to stand out. The best sound of the game, I think we can all agree, is the ping. Hearing that ping from a weak point is just the most satisfying thing ever. When you shoot a sticky bomb on a weak point and then turn around to fight someone else, you're just listening in the back of your mind for that confirmation that you destroyed the weak point. It's really recognizable and addictive. Picking up a BFG charge makes a low digital thud. Armor pickups have a nice sharp crunch to them. The really smart sound design comes from the equipment charges. The chainsaw recharges with an ugly gurgling sound. The flame belch has a sound that's like a power on switch. It's got a bright crunch to it like a digital potato chip. The grenade has a bright beep. The blood punch has a low monotone chant. Once you learn to recognize these tones, all unique in nature, you can start understanding when your abilities are ready to use without having to take your eye off the battlefield. Really, the amount of thought and care they put into the user experience is phenomenal and doesn't get enough attention. The Doom series has existed in many forms, not just in gameplay, but in art style. You have the goofy 16-bit graphics of the original game, with Doomguy shifting his eyebrows back and forth. It's horrific and violent, but it's also cartoonish and fun. Doom 3 took the series in a very dark and serious tone. There really isn't any humor or lightheartedness to be found there. and Doom 2016 draws on the Doom 3 seriousness while adding some more color and bringing back the action of the originals. Doom Eternal leads much more on the cartoonish look of the original games, with enemies feeling like they were ripped from an 80s metal music video or something. There's a comic book feel to it all, and it's very fun. Hugo Martin talks a lot about Evil Dead 2, and that's definitely the vibe that came through. There are certainly people that prefer the more serious look, but I want to say that I think the art style really complements the gameplay loop. I would be really excited to see Doom go dark and serious again. I think Doom can exist in many styles, but when I think of another of my favorite series, Mortal Kombat, I always remember liking the fatalities that made me laugh a lot more than the ones that horrified me. And when I say it complements the gameplay, it's because it's equally exaggerated. The rapid pace of movement, flying around in the air with a grappling hook and dashing around like an anime character, exploding a group of burning enemies into a flood of armor pieces, I think this works much better with an arcadey heavy metal aesthetic. I have a hard time imagining this pace of gameplay with a brutal, serious tone. Playing Doom Eternal puts a smile on my face, and I'm happy for that. The graphics speak for themselves. The game is so technically impressive and beautiful, it truly has a unique visual identity, and the levels are filled with lots of moments where you just want to stop and admire the scenery. The monsters are far more detailed to their 2016 counterparts, and the gore system is just the coolest thing I've ever seen. This has to be the most violent and gory game ever made. And that pretty much brings my review to a close. I think I've hit all the major points that make Doom Eternal what it is. No game is perfect, I have a few issues with it, but they're so minimal that they're pretty easy to overlook. What I love the most about it is the gameplay loop, the combat and all the new mechanics. I could have talked a lot more about how the armor system works and how the meat hook works, but I've already talked about those things in other videos, and I invite you to check out the rest of my channel. When you look at all the mechanics of this game, they had a really specific kind of gameplay in mind, one that is really active. There's still a lot of choice and player creativity. You can choose to play like a chaotic madman like me, spraying plasma and remote detonation rockets everywhere. You can play like my buddy Ketchup, quickly switching to precision shot and clearing out rooms at a distance. You can prioritize high damage lock-on rockets to take out heavy enemies, or you can dance with them using sticky bombs and the meat hook. You can stun lock the Marauder, bounce him around with remote detonation rockets, you can stick and move with him as you fight other enemies, but all of the available creativity for the player must exist inside the system they've created. The system of using flame belch to maintain your armor supply, using glory kills to heal and build blood punch, weapon switching to manage ammo supplies, and using chainsaw to restock. If you don't want to engage with this system, you're not going to enjoy the game. That's why some people strongly prefer Doom 2016. It was less complex, more straightforward. You weren't really rewarded for playing dynamically, and the systems didn't exist to push you in that direction. However, you weren't punished for not playing dynamically either. It was still a great experience, only less cerebral and chaotic. It was my favorite game for 3 years, until Doom Eternal. I'm beyond pleased with the fact that they designed the game specifically to be played the way it's played, and that they stuck to their guns. In conclusion, I think there are different ways to look at a game and grade it. If I look at Doom Eternal as an overall gaming experience, something to be played and enjoyed a couple times as most people will, then I agree with Angry Joe's 10 out of 10 review. The game is a masterpiece on that level, as an experience. I can also look at the game from other perspectives and see some technical issues, some level design aspects I disagree with, some missed opportunities in the storytelling, things that make parts of the game tedious when you replay it a lot of times. But they are so small compared to how impressive and fun the rest of the game is. So my final score would be like a 9.5. It's one of the greatest games ever made, with a stellar campaign and a multiplayer mode that has a dedicated player fanbase, and not a single predatory microtransaction in the entire game. Doom Eternal earns its place amongst the greatest games of the generation and of all time. In my opinion, with very few exceptions, pretty much everything in Doom Eternal is a huge upgrade. I can honestly say that it's the most fun I've ever had with a game. It's challenging, it's inventive, it's mind-expanding. It is now my favorite game and probably will be for years to come. I don't know how id Software is ever gonna top this. I bet they can, but even if they can't, another Doom even half this good would be enough. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this content, check out the rest of my channel and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter, and if you'd like to support my work, I have an account on Patreon. Thank you to the Doom community for their support and their input. See you in the next video.